Unity, obunye, ubuntu, imbumba, shanganani makabani, shanganani. Now is the time for unity in action. Now is the time for a united front. Now is the time for team spirit. Now is the time for a rock solid ball. Now is the time for a rock solid ball. Unity, unity, unity. Now is the time to unity, now is the time to close the lens. Now is the time for the now is the time for patriotic love. Now is the time to end it. Now is the time to embrace honors of struggle and Dr. Moroka, Dr. Tuma, Dr. Yusuf Datu, Dr. Beatrice, Ramsisha, Rosulovo, Pisani, Oliver Tambo, Nelson Mandela. The list is endless. Unity, Obunye, Ubuntu, Imbumba, Shanganani, Makabani, Shanganani.
That's probably about as much as I can take of that. Good evening, guys, and welcome to. I think this is the third episode of MANologue, where I do a monologue sharing my ideas on the topic of the day. I hope all of you guys are doing well, and yeah, that was that was quite something. I've been well. My second son was born. So that's very white pilling. I'm very thankful that everything went well and that there wasn't anything major, any major problems or so on. Yeah. So what am I going to be discussing today? Yeah, that was very enriching. Yeah, couldn't imagine the smell if you had to be at that Unity conference right there. But anyways, yeah. So I'm going to talk a bit about Unity makes strength. It was, I think, I'm not exactly sure the origins of it in the in our historical context, but it was used. It has been used numerous times in politics and in folks. Uh, how do you say? Discourse in South Africa. Unity makes strength. Eendrag maak mag. Um, and it's something after. Well, this is not what spurred the idea. I've been thinking about this for quite a while now. When you and some of your friends, maybe, or people that you consider to be not necessarily friends, but on the same um, mindset with regards to our worldviews and stuff like that. Um, when there is differences in opinion or whatever it may be, people often talking about how splintered our community is and stuff like that, how ununited our community is. And then tonight one of my friends shared a group shared a video on this one group that we are on together in Telegram. And in this video, this guy talks about how all of this little fragmented groups in South Africa need to unite. And we need to set aside our differences and we need to unite, and just so we can oust the ANC. And when we oust the ANC, then we continue our battles with each other. You know, this is something that the DA, the Democratic Alliance in South Africa, always uses as their main selling point. It's like, yeah, it's good to have differences, but what you need to do is you need to vote for the DA, even if you don't entirely agree with us, because if you do, we get the ANC out, and when we get the ANC out, then you can continue your little struggle against the DA or whatever. Now that is an extremely misleading statement, and it's extremely false. It's just to keep you on the track that the ANC is the problem, or it's this, that, or the other. And that's not the truth. And surprisingly as this may be, this is the exact same argument that I have heard numerous times. And I wouldn't be surprised if I haven't made the argument myself in the past that we just need to collectivize as white people. And when we collectivize as white people, we trample our racial enemies, and then we can have out it at it. The pagans and the Christians and whoever can fight over ideas with each other and stuff like that. Now, tonight, as I sit here, I think that way of thinking is riddled in error, you know, because the problem isn't solely the ANC or the the Jewish question that's afflicting white people in the world. The problem is with white people a sense of ideology or a sense of identity, right? And a sense of common purpose. That is the problem. So, what does it help we get rid of the ANC, but white people don't have a sense of common purpose? It's not going to change much, then is it? So, in which direction are you heading? Is your penultimate worldview, the apex of your worldview, to replace the ANC government, or to replace those that rule over you, or is it to govern yourself by your own values, by your own direction, and by your own choosing? You see, this is the point that I think that we need to get to. we need to define where it is that we want to go. And a lot of people will quickly jump and answer and say, oh, but that's simple. No, it's not simple, because if it was simple, then we would have already been on our way to that destination, right? So, this is in my mind the number one thing that we need to focus on. It's not who do we replace, or with whom do we replace it, but rather where do we want to be? What is it that we really want? Okay. And next thing that's gonna come is like, oh yeah, but we want a nation, right? That is unified under in South Africa. This would absolutely be the number one thing. We want a country unified under God. Or we want a country unified under Christ. You know, Jesus Christ to be king in South Africa, and this is the direction that we want to go. But that's really a lazy way of thinking, and that's how do you say um, regurgitory thought process that you hear from people, and it's not something that they've really thought through. I can guarantee it. You know, the number of people that would actually, after thinking about that, want that is not somebody that the majority of us would want to align ourselves with in any way. So the second point is identity. It is key. Identity is very, very important. Now, that is why I say we need to make our um, identity based around measurable things, based around exclusive things. So don't see it as infighting when, for instance, the National Justice Party in America are fighting with the America First Party, because these two parties are at their core fighting for two different futures. You know, they're not fighting for different policies, they're not fighting for different approaches. They are fighting for essentially different futures. And it's the same thing in South Africa. Don't be afraid to lose friends, to make new friends in your journey or in your pursuit to what we really want. So, for me, what I see as an effective message is one that is centered around racial identity, within your ethnic confines. So we need something in all Western nations that encourages us towards an international collective that works towards an international ideal for white people, but it still defends national identity, right? Ethnic identity of white people. For instance, I do not want my country to turn into New England or New Germany or whatever, for instance. South Africa for the white man, but primarily for the Boers, you see? And so the Americans should want their country, but primarily for the American peoples, the American genetic white group. And if we all start working towards that goal, then it is 100% achievable, right? But if we are harping on ideas, collectivizing around ideas, and ideas which can be interpreted by anybody at any certain point in time, which can be repeated by anybody at any certain point in time, as we can clearly see in our South Africa, how blacks in have adopted the Afrikaner culture, started speaking Afrikaans, and some of these blacks are more well spoken than your average Afrikaans person. They make explicit effort to speak better Afrikaans than your average Boer would speak Afrikaans. Why is this? Because they cling to this fragment of identity as their foundation of identity, right? Because this is their footstep leading into our collective identity. That's why they do it. And then they adopt our religion. So now it's a Christian speaking Afrikaans, singing Afrikaans music, and inevitably dating an Afrikaans girl. Because you know what? Or a Boer meisie, or a Afrikaner girl. Why? Because this is the danger that collectivizing around ideas brings. Okay? So, yes, we do need an ideology, but the ideology needs to be seated in racial cohesion and racial exclusivity. Okay? So, if somebody isn't born into a group, he is not welcome to that group. This is the kind of messaging that we need, you know? This is the common purpose that we need if we are going to achieve anything. We do not need to aspire to anything higher than that, because in pursuing this, I believe the highest aspirations in life or the next will be met through this worldview, through fighting for your racial king, but not exclusively for your racial kin, but oh no, yeah, exclusively for your racial kin and those that are of the same culture as you within that racial kin, excluding anybody that isn't naturally born into your identity. This is what we want. This is what I believe will propel us forward. And this is the only true measurable progress that has been made in all of these years of debating and trying to push ideas on other people, etc., etc., etc. Do not be impressed by, for instance, the size of an organization or the mm, how palatable it is for other people, because it doesn't matter. That which is healthy to the body is not necessarily as palatable as that which is unhealthy, right? It's easier to consume sugars and everything that is, it's easier to consume carbs and everything that's unhealthy for you. It's easier to not go and exercise than what it is to exercise. The real measurable growth is always going to be defined by struggle and strife. And therefore, and thus, we shouldn't seek to dilute our message in order to grow our numbers. But we grow not through expansion, but through expanding in or expanding numerically, but through expanding inwardly, right? Through strengthening our message and through strengthening our desire to be three. That is ultimately what is going to bring us to the point where we are willing to fight. Because right now in South Africa, the reality is, and many of us will have different answers towards why we aren't there yet, but the fact of the matter is, we are not ready to fight as badly as some of us do want to fight now. We are not ready for that. And those of us that have reached the point of physical, mental, moral, um, how do you say, uh, position in where you feel ready for this fight, it is now your responsibility to gather, to muster those within your collective, within our racial collective, within our identity collective, right? Towards that same point that you are. You have to now bring them to the same point that you are. That is the long way, that is the hard way, but that is by God the effective way. And that is how we are going to win. We are not going to win this by some follyful acts of valor, individualist, excuse me, acts of valor seated in, wanting honor for yourself or wanting glory for yourself. If we seek honor, may it be that we seek to honor our people. If we seek uh, power, may it be that we seek to empower our people. If we seek glory, may it be the glory of our people. And if we seek salvation, may it be the salvation of our people, so that we once again can be a proud people in our own countries that we govern by ourselves, exclusively for our own people. Nothing short of this is a message worth spreading, is a message worth endorsing. Okay? So I want you guys to think about this long and hard. It is not that we need to unify with everybody that is white or everybody that calls themselves a right winger. It is that we need to unify with people that will bring about the future that we want. That is the unity that we need. Because you see, you can never and you will never, ever, ever convince anybody of anything in this life. But through your convictions, people will gravitate towards your convictions. Okay? Through the hardships that they will go through in their lives. You will see a liberal in South Africa. He will hate you for what you say when you try and convince him. But if you live for your um, exclusive purpose, right? And that liberal starts being tired of the afflictions that is forced on him, or that conservative by the status quo, he will gravitate towards your position. So do not try to convince other people of what you believe, but live your beliefs in a way that people will gravitate towards your conviction. That is all that I have to say tonight, my friends, and I hope you have a good and blessed evening. Um, it's been good to be able to talk to you guys again. Um, all I can say is if you don't have children yet, please get to work fashioning your life in a way so that you can accommodate the family and so that you can add to our racial collective and add towards our common racially exclusive future by by means of your genetics. Stay safe, everybody, and stay proud of your race and people.